up? Welcome back for another episode of the Currency Club. Today's special guest is Fela Abioye. And I actually met him through my Houston network, through my day job, my professional job. We were partnered to do a speaking engagement for NAIA, the National African American Insurance Association. And Fela blew me away. His professionalism, his planning, his organization, his public speaking, his detail orientation, like all of that, right? So I'm like, okay, this is somebody I need to know. So Fela is the founder of How to Corporate Podcast, and his content is so good. I'm constantly having conversations with my family and friends about how to navigate this corporate market. And then when I discover his podcast, I'm like, y'all need to hear this, right? So super excited to have Fela here. What's up, Fela?
First and foremost, thank you so much for this opportunity. And as you kind of shared with your audience, I was blown away by you as well when we got thrusted into that little project of ours. But it was a unique experience, fun experience. I think we did a really nice job. I was glad to hear that you invited me to this, and I love what you're doing as well, taking the opportunity to elevate business owners and other creatives who are out here trying to achieve and trying to help other people. So yeah, so my name is Fela Abioye, as you indicated. I'm the founder of How to Corporate. It's a podcast focused on helping people navigate their working worlds, right? And really helping people get to where they want to be. Very rarely do people get to where they want to be in life on their own. We all need help. We all need a helping hand. And sometimes people have a network amongst themselves or amongst their kind of outer circle in order to reach out to, in order to be able to get that help. But sometimes folks don't, right? And they don't know where to turn to. And so I created this platform so that way folks from around the world, no matter what walk of life you are, but who are working typically in a corporate environment, can find tools and learning from other people's experiences. So that's what this How to Corporate journey is about for me. I'm about a little over a year and a half into the journey now, and I've been working in the corporate landscape for about, call it 13, 14 years. And so it's been a journey. I've learned a lot. I've had a lot of great guests. And what really gets me going every day is every now and then I'll get a message, an email, a DM, someone just saying, man, your episode was so timely. Or I use learning from that opportunity in my last interview or my last conversation. It's something to do with work.
All right, so you've been in the corporate space for a very long time.
Right.
What are, a few of the lessons that you've learned?
Be the owner of your own career, own your career. I've had a lot of great people in my life really kind of push that into my way of thinking, and not really just about my career, but just about life, right? Own your life, right? So in whatever way that is, but especially when it comes to your career. And sometimes it may feel like things are out of our control, whether it be the boss that you work for or the environment that you're in or the projects you get selected for, etc. But, besides all the quote unquote uncontrollables in life, like own your career. If you want to do something, go out and do it. You want to achieve something, go out and achieve it. Don't let other people's perspective necessarily completely change how you think of yourself and how you view yourself. So that's number one. And then number two, fostering and building relationships. I say relationships versus networking because we all have a sense of a network, whether it be through school or whether it be through work. But relationships mean something a little deeper. Relationships are folks that there's an exchange there, right? You get something out of your relationship with the other person and you receive something back from the other. So fostering relationships, I think, is a big thing when it comes to navigating your career. And it's not just from a superficial perspective, which again is what I lean towards when I think about just quote unquote network.
Okay, so what sets your podcast apart from other podcasts? I feel like there are millions of podcasts available.
Oh, I truly believe that I have one of the few and only podcasts that are real. I think there are a lot of niches out there and a lot of things that people are trying to talk about with work to make it sexy or sound cool or just to get to the high life. I describe it a lot like this. When you think about your career is a marathon. It's coined the phrase from Nipsey Hussle, right? Your career is a marathon. Getting the job, getting the opportunity, that's the first leg of the race, but literally the first leg. And so, but it doesn't stop there. You got a long time to work. And there will be other situations where you go back to the first leg because you get a new job. But what happens in between those other legs, right? What happens when you get the job and now you got to work your way through it, right? Where you got to figure out ways how to promote yourself or how to get promoted or how to navigate, right? All the different nuances. I don't really honestly hear many, if any at all, podcasts that really talk about that. There's a lot of podcasts that talk about entrepreneurship and ownership, which is great and fantastic. And I think we need all those. But That's not for everybody. There are many people out here who are going to get up, go to work every day and provide for their families. And that's a great life for them. But they still want to achieve. They still got aspirations to be able to be at the top of the mountain, to get to where they want to be in their fields. And so we need people who have real life experiences who are willing to share and be honest about that so that way they can help elevate themselves to the next level too. And that's what my show is all about. It's about taking other people's real life experiences who have actually achieved in their spaces and sharing that so that way they can take their experiences, tweak it, and make it their own and go out and achieve for themselves.
So how do you find these guests? Your guests are amazing.
So I get a lot of referrals when I started this idea, and which I had sat on honestly for probably a little over a year, maybe a year and a half. And then finally got started with really through the help of my wife, because she was like, you got to stop talking about this. And you guys finally do it. I don't want to hear about it no more until you finally get this thing done. So when I finally decided I was going to do this, really all the people that I've had relationships with, whether it be through work or through school and, et cetera, all really kind of came to my aid and started saying, oh, I love this idea. You should have this person as a guest. You should have this person as a guest and this person. And everyone just started flooding me with all types of guests. And so, through the quote unquote vetting process, and if you listen to my show, you'll realize that I kind of found my space over the first several episodes. And then once I really kind of dialed that in, I realized the type of people and the types of questions I wanted to ask and pointed. That was just a snowball effect. That's really where I've gotten majority of my guests is through referrals. And then some of them I've sought out, individually of folks that I don't know. Having a podcast, of course, it does push you into the social media space. So I've had to learn to kind of navigate that space and see other content creators who are also active in this space as well. And so I've reached out to them and connected with folks and had a couple of them on my podcast as well. So it's a combination.
Think about the potential audience, right? People who are not familiar with your podcast, but are looking for some new content, who might find value in what you have. Which episode would you suggest that they start with?
How to negotiate your worth. This is episode number 2 with Dr. Rochelle Parks Yancey. He's an educator, a professor, resume writer, kind of a career architect, and very much so a mentor to me. That whole episode is really about the negotiation process that goes along in the workspace. Many people who are seeking new opportunities, seeking jobs, they never really negotiate. They never go down the negotiating path. So they just get a job offer and they accept, and then they kind of just keep it moving. But they don't realize how much opportunity, sometimes money, sometimes other negotiating factors that you leave on the table by not even going down the path of negotiation. Many people don't do so because of fear. Fear holds us back. We don't want to look ungrateful. We are worried that, am I asking too much, or I'm never really going to get that number that I've got in my mind. So they don't even attempt to offer a counter or a counter offer or any type of negotiation. So she really walks us through the steps of how to do it and what a successful negotiation looks like, and all the different things that one can negotiate. So, and not just salary, PTO, child allocation for benefits, gas, some cases, right? If you have got a certain number of miles drive, each and every day, higher education. There's so many different things that one can negotiate out of employers, especially when people feel like they found the right talent and people are willing to give you an offer, right? Like, this is your opportune time to go out and command your worth. But, so often people just don't do it, like, at all. Or if they do it, they don't do it the most proficient way, right? So it takes practice, just like with anything. Anything that you're going to do for the first time or you don't do very regularly, talking in a mirror and going the back and forth, how to test yourself to make sure that you're speaking about it in the right way, and handling rejection, right? Because sometimes people say no. How do you still command what you need, and what's your low ball, your high ball, and kind of medium? I think that's a really good episode. And the funny thing is that at a follow-up episode to that, I want to say it's like maybe episode 29, 28, counteroffer, also with Dr. Yancey, because I brought it back. I think that's another good one as well.
I
Yeah.
love that episode. That was the
Yeah.
first one that I listened to in
Okay.
detail in its
Yeah.
entirety. I said, oh my gosh, she is number one, so passionate about the topic. She spoke with so much conviction. And a lot of stuff she said, I already knew. But for other people who are not comfortable, negotiating their salary, I'm like, y'all have to listen to this episode. So yeah, I listened to that one. Sent it to 3 of my cousins and friends. Like, y'all got to listen to this, because some of them were actively job seeking. And they were, like you said, they were just so accustomed to taking the bare minimum. Whatever a company offered them is what they, generally accepted. And I feel like that's especially true for women, number one, but then also people of color. So many of us do not negotiate our salary, which is why we are brought in at the lower end of the pay scale, and why through, conversations with your colleagues, you find out that they making more than you, $10,000 more. They got better vacation packages or whatever, because we are not taught to negotiate our salary. So I love that episode. Just wanted to give you some,
Yeah.
affirmations there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, but I was fortunate enough to have her guidance very early in my career, so I recognize that I need to
Hmm.
be doing that, early. Some folks go, 20, 30 plus years and never negotiate a diamond. So yeah,
So
so that's just one of a few other episodes too, and I did want to kind of maybe hit on two more. Imposter syndrome was another very, very highly listened to episode. That was with Kiera Suggs, and that's episode 22. It's exactly how it sounds. Imposter syndrome. I think it's something that many people deal with, but don't recognize that it is imposter syndrome, where we don't feel confident in speaking up for ourselves. We don't feel confident in taking credit for the work, the achievements that we have had within our career. We feel nervous. We overthink. We're constantly second guessing ourselves. How to identify what imposter syndrome looks like when you come across it, how to deal with it, how to recognize when it may be holding you back in your career. The common thing that you also see with my guests is that people get real. They talk about their own personal challenges with it, right? So Kiera talks about how she has dealt with imposter syndrome. And on that episode, right, she had just got promoted to the head of HR. So I think there's a lot of power in that when you see people who are maybe at the top of their game, but still dealing with things that everyone deals with. That's a really popular one. Another one is episode 23, introvert in an extrovert world. That one also resonated, I think, with a lot of people because when you think about what the model employee looks like or the model person that looks like in your organization, like the person that everyone kind of deems as being the go-to, being a star performer, a superstar, and whatever it is they do, they tend to quote unquote have extrovert tendencies. But what if that's not your nature? What if you don't come across as extroverted? Maybe you know how to handle yourself in the room, you know how to be around people, but you are very much so, I'm a thinker. You're to yourself a little bit, but people don't deem those qualities as quote unquote being qualities to emulate. So how do one still go out and achieve? How does one still go out and remain themselves without necessarily compromising who they are, right? In order to kind of continue to progress their career. So yeah, like I said, I've got a lot of just different things that really touch on soft skills.
I know that you are trying to push this content out to the world. You mentioned using social media, you mentioned relationship building in your own network, but how do you market your show?
LinkedIn, I'm not a big social media guy, and anybody who knows me personally knows that I am not. It's not my thing. I've had to learn, especially going down this podcast journey, the power of social media. Initially, I started off really broad and trying to hit almost every single one of them, and so it's been a learning journey for me, learning who I was and who my audience is. And when I realized that, who I'm talking to are the folks that are either early, mid, or late in their career, but somehow feel stuck or somehow feel like they can't get to the next level. And there's a reason why, but they can't figure out why. And they're searching for what that is. These folks are seeking out opportunities to learn. They're seeking out ways to kind of get better. Where are they seeking that information out from? From a social media perspective, LinkedIn tends to be the main space that I go to. But I also share my content on YouTube because I think YouTube is also a great source for material when you think about how to, right? So LinkedIn, YouTube, through all the podcast platforms, Apple, Anchor / Spotify, Google Podcast, really through a lot of the relationships that I have within my working world. I talk through a lot of my guests, right, that come on, and they all come from different walks of life, right? So I've had some people on the platform who work in insurance. I've had people who work in sales, who work in finance, work in banking, who work in education, work in engineering, real estate, right? So a lot of times it's really through them and through a lot of my guests, right, who continue to promote it because they become fans of the show. They become listeners. A lot of different methods, right? So it's been working. Numbers have been growing, and it's been a labor of love, but I've been enjoying it.
So now let's shift and talk a little bit about money. Do you make any money from your podcast yet? Is that a goal of yours, or are you just doing this to educate?
So I do make some money. It's not a lot of money, to be honest. The intent of this show was not financially driven. The main purpose of my show was I felt like there was a need that I wanted to fill, right? So I started from an aspect of educating, an aspect of helping folks the way they have helped me. And so that's the spirit in which I operate. But through the podcast, it has caused different levels of revenue generating, right? So for example, clearly I got a out of corporate shirt on, right? So, and if you ever want to buy any of my merch, right, you can go to my link tree at How to Corporate and check it out, or drop me a DM, right, if you want to buy merch, right? So I sell hats, I sell polo. I also do get some revenue in from advertising, and then I also use How to Corporate to do some different speaking engagements, right? So I'll speak to students and other folks kind of representing the How to Corporate brand.
Okay, so we heard advertisements, I imagine, on the podcast because your podcast is available on various streaming platforms. We heard
Correct.
merch.
Mm-hmm.
We We heard speaking engagements. And Fella also told me that he does a little bit of consulting too.
I do some consulting. I don't advertise it as much because it just requires so much more time.
All right, so I just kind of wanted to circle back to that because I've had people come to me and say that they want to start a podcast, and I'm like, okay, what's your why behind it? Because they see New Currency Club, which is honestly just YouTube right now, but then they think that it's a way to make a ton of money, and I'm like, no. What value are you going to add to your audience, right? What is your reason behind it? What do you have to share? What's going to set you apart from other people? Because every day there are millions of things competing for our time, energy, and attention. So don't start a podcast just because you think you're going to make money out of it, because very few podcasts actually make money. So I'm happy that you brought up, the various ways that yours is generating money, but it's outside of advertisements. It's through merch and, other things that you're using to get your brand in front of people. So on the same topic of money, what is the craziest thing you've ever done for money?
I'm Nigerian, first generation. My parents came to America in the late 70s, early 80s. I was a second child, but first child born in America. I very much grew up in a Nigerian American upbringing. Nigerians like to celebrate. And so that means having parties and festivities and things of that nature. And so I grew up going to many a party, many festivities, even as a young kid. Parents would have these late night gatherings and they would bring the kids, and it was a whole family affair. And so we do something that's called spray, whoever's a celebrant. So let's say you just got married or you just graduated from high school or graduated from college, etc. Right? Kind of come to the middle of the dance floor. Everybody has a bunch of cash on them, and then they start spraying. So as a form of celebration, right, for your big day, the kids would get on it very often. And how you would get the money is you would have to dance, right? You would have to dance. So dancing is a part of the culture. It's a very, very big part of Nigerian culture and most African cultures as well. Very often, as a young kid, right, you don't have no real way of earning income. And so I had plenty of chores. I wasn't getting paid for any chores. So the only real way that I had to generate income was to dance. I remember one time I was saving up to buy a Sega Genesis. I was getting close, and I've been stashing away my dollars. And so I was getting close. I think Genesis was like $100, $120, something like that or whatever. And so I think I had like $80. And I was like, okay, I was counting my money. I was like, man, I want to buy my Genesis this Christmas. So there was a party coming up. So I was determined that I'm gonna be dancing up here all night. So I was dancing all night for about 3 hours straight. I was sweating up there. And everybody's like, man, let's play around. All the kids want to hang out. Everybody else want to do it. I was like, nope, I'm about to earn this $30 right now because I'm buying this Genesis. So I worked.
They say you can tell a lot about a person based on what they spend a majority of their money on every week or every month. When you think about how you spend your money, what do you spend the most on?
What we spend our money on and what we spend our time on, I think can definitely say a lot about a person. I definitely spend plenty of money on my family. Think about bills. I'm thinking about my kid in daycare and, kind of just taking care of the household and doing things to kind of prop us up and build things for our future. I'm not very big on like a super amount of materialistic things. I've gone through phases of my life just like with everyone else, right? I used to have an Infiniti, that was like my dream car at the time, and I really enjoyed that car. And then I think I paid the car off within a few years, and then 6 months later, I got totaled the car, and that was an experience for me because I was just like, wow, one, I'm glad I walked away from that. It wasn't like a crazy, it was like a 4 car pileup, but it reset my mind about money. I was thinking about, man, I just poured so much money into this car, and this car is gone, and I'm not gonna get that money back. The insurance is not gonna cut me a check for all that money I just spent on it, so I'm not doing this again. So I spent a lot of my time and money on just investments and setting my family up for the future. So finding ways where we can build, finding ways we can acquire more properties or acquire more opportunities to learn and grow, whether it be on vacations, experiences.
I want to talk about challenges. What are some of the greatest challenges or some of the stuff that happens behind the scenes that people don't think about goes into creating and sustaining a podcast?
I just give a lot of credit to content creators after going down this experience. You take for granted like all the different people and the engines that go into creating content, all the things that we enjoy. And like, I would not consider myself a quote unquote creative in this space prior to going into it. Like the most quote unquote creative things I did was usually more music based, right? So because I was a musician growing up, but man, just the editing, the hours, the trying to quote unquote make it perfect, the sound quality, the video quality, the lighting, right? Having the right breath, the guest, the timing, the technical issues that go into it. Like it's so many different elements, of course, which which we were dealing with earlier today. So it's so many things that go into this. And at any point, one could just be like, you know what, I'm done. I don't have time for this. I got so many other things that I could be doing right now, but I keep coming back to it. I keep doing this because I think about my why. Other people have helped me, push me when I do feel tired and weary because they reinforce my why as well, which is to help others, right? And to help people get to where they want to be. And I'm hoping that somebody listens to it. You don't have to be an avid listener of How to Corporate, but if you listen to one episode and you were like, yo, this one right here, this one spoke to me. This one was exactly the message I needed to hear at this time right now for whatever it is I'm dealing with. And you want to share that with a couple people, boom, that's all I need right there, right? So I would love for you to come back and listen to more, but if that's all you get out of it, I'm good with that. And just big ups to content creators out there and all the folks who have the time and the energy and are doing this stuff for the right reasons because it's necessary.
So now I want to play another game with you. And this game is called For the Culture. I love to support, promote, empower Black owned businesses. So in this game, I want you to tell the viewers and listeners, what is your favorite Black owned business?
I'm gonna keep it traditional. World Lace. World Lace is off of BeachNet or BeachNet, right? It's one of the B's in Houston. So World Lace, LACE. Nigerian culture is a big thing for me. And World Lace is a clothing material shop for African native wear, right? So think Ankaras, material for galas, and material for men's native wear or women's native wear. World Lace has very much been I would say, staple within the community for me growing up. I know the family that owns that business. We all went to church together for many, many, many years, and they have stood the test of time. Many a times when my mom was still alive, where we would go there and go, pick out material for outfits and go and just hang out there. And we would, talk to some of the other kids that are hanging out there. And so it wound up just kind of being almost like barbershop style, right? Where you think about guys sitting down and getting haircuts and just kind of hanging out there or whatever. World Lace is very much like that, right? So where the aunties and the uncles and people just come out and hang out and catch up and see each other while they're also supporting this business. So check that out.
All right. So what is your greatest accomplishment with How to Corporate?
The impact I believe I've had with my listeners. I've had people directly message me, email me, and tell me how these episodes have had a direct impact on their career, specifically around the time that they were going through the interview process for a role, for a job. They were thinking through how to go through that process to form, right? One, possibly leaving their prior employer and how to maybe, bridge that relationship to ensure that there may be something there in the future. But then also how to best execute this opportunity in front of them before they join, right? And maximize, right, their earning potential. I talked about the episode before around the imposter syndrome. I used to get a lot of messages around that when that episode first came out and how much it resonated with them and how they felt heard a bit more and how they were searching for the words of how to describe how they felt. And the episode brought that out for them. I would just say, honestly, just the impact with the listeners, because one, that's just what keeps me going. I could talk about the views and having so many hits or the listenerships continuing to rise, which I have all of that, right? I've had many things that I could, talk through around how the viewership has gone up, the listenership has gone up, et cetera, et cetera. But it really is just the impact.
Okay. What's next for your brand?
Definitely having a book that is produced specifically around all the learning of How to Corporate through all the different interviews, the different insights many of the guests have provided about just navigating the corporate realm and being able to take your career to the next level. It's something that I hope to produce this year before the end of the year. I just recognize different people have different ways of learning. I'm more of an audiobook kind of person, but I also like podcasts too. But some people like to read physical books too. So that's a big goal for me is to get a written form book out there because I've gotten way more comfortable listening to the sound of my own voice. I'm probably going to do an audio book as well. So
all right. So I want to thank you for your patience, number one, but your patience, time, energy, all the insights that you shared with our audience, our viewers, and our listeners. But before you go, I need you to leave the viewers with an inspirational message.
I say be the bus driver. Recognize the power that you have, be able to take over that wheel at any moment. Know that your career is in your hands, your life is in your hands, regardless of what happens around you, regardless of what negativity that may sprout up around you, regardless of what other people say, that whether you're ready or not, whether you're good enough or not, whether you got passed over for the last opportunity. A really big point of that too is I don't ride the bus alone. I've got folks who ride the bus with who carry me along the way, because don't try to do it all on yourself. Bring other folks along with you.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join the club, and we will see you next time.